Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. This talk is part of a work done together with Elżbieta Korolczuk and with a team of Kindle working on how anti-gender mobilizations engage with and contribute to de-democratization, with Connie Rogeband, Andrea Crisan, I'm thinking I'm seeing her here, Petra Meijer, Aurora Perego, Elena Pavan, Elżbieta and me, and then in a wider sense the whole Kindle project. And it's also based on work with David Paternotte on a chapter that will be in a forthcoming Edgar Elgar handbook on knowledge politics. I thank all these people, and all the mistakes are mine. So I will talk on how the politics of knowledge are currently mobilized for a politics of autocratization in Europe, with a few examples from the US to clarify the process, the intentions, and the mechanisms. And when I speak about the politics of knowledge, I refer to the political power dynamics around science and education. Attacks against science are growing, support for science is weakening, and my focus here is on the fact that not all sciences are equally targeted. Sciences that focus on knowledge on the dynamics of inequalities or injustice are especially targeted. So being a member of the Kindle team, I recommend our website. We have wonderful blogs. There's just a new one of Elżbieta on the politics of knowledge, on MCC, ISEP, and Ordo Juris, I think. No, the Collegium Intermarum. We understand democracy as a process of democratization. I'm truly seeing that we are more of a sociological political scientist than many of you. So we see it as an ongoing struggle in a context of never actually existing democracy, of polities always failing vis-à-vis ideal type democracy. You want to know more on this? Read our landmark article on problematic legacies of European democracies in Women's Studies International Forum 2025 by Connie Rogeband, Marta Ralusco, Petra Meijer, Emma Lombardo, Paloma Caravantes, and Silvia Diaz-Fernandez. So we see also erosion or backsliding or de-democratization as profoundly facilitated by all these problematic legacies that also facilitate anti-gender actors and wannabe autocrats. We see the actions of these actors as adding another layer of damage to always already damaged democratic systems. The logic of exclusion is already built into these systems. To shift the categories of exclusion, to specify some more, to add some, does not require these democratic systems to really change. It cements the exclusions they already have, and it enables more of them. Similarly, academia, education institutions are an unfulfilled promise. Yes, they can be about the pleasure of learning, of asking, of understanding. They have at times been breeding grounds for new critical ideas. But then also, at their core, they're systems of distinction, comfortably functioning in all existing problematic legacies. And concerning de-democratization, I find most value in giving a strong accent to top-down erosion of democracy, such as battles. So the shift and understanding of democracy as let's try to understand how it's weakened, to try to understand in what direction the push for the alternative is going, pointing to processes of autocratization and to the societies they aim to produce. So these are my assumptions. There are a growing number of interventions in science and education that negatively impact on their quality, especially their potential to deliver knowledge on inequalities and exclusion. And this intervention taps into ongoing flows of academic institutions and into ongoing flows of democracy. So let me give you some detail from the Kindle reports, and it will be a bit general. I'm lucky to be in this panel. We have more examples from Hungary, and now we skipped one paper, I don't know, especially. So Kindle project looks at Poland, Hungary, the UK, Belgium, Spain, Italy, Sweden, and the EU. And our ideas or data on the politics of knowledge is based on secondary analysis, so analysis of already existing academic articles in various languages and interview data by the researchers. And we see two analytically distinct modes of intervening in knowledge production and knowledge transfer. The first mode is reactive or repressive. The second mode is proactive or productive. So the first targets what is there and attacks it. The second provides ideas or actions to replace them. The more intense forms of repressive interventions head towards pushing feminist and social justice discourses out of the public sphere. Repressive acts go from just challenging data or research to epistemically violent vilification and attacks and depicting feminist actors as enemy of the nation. Knowledge institutions are harassed in various ways, from bureaucratic harassment, such as accusing them of tax evasion, to managerial exclusion, such as blocking transfer of knowledge across education levels, to deliberative exclusion of closing space for debate or blocking access to data, withdrawing resources for gender studies, for anti-discrimination, sex education, or for any institution seen as promoting a social justice agenda. Productive interventions range from just promoting new public intellectuals to directly substituting experts to attempts as a wholesale academic elite change. And you can read Elzbieta's blog for examples on this. The content of the newly presented knowledge often includes arguments concerning the ideas of the gender binary, biological sex as scientific facts, along with homo-nationalist, cis-nationalist, and femo-nationalist interpretations of gender equality. Presenting gay rights and gender equality as Western politics that either need to be denounced as foreign or that need to be protected against racialized migrants. So these repressive, discursive interventions, and sometimes material ones, they create space for the productive interventions that aim to replace them and replace the actors. You've all seen what is happening in Hungary. I will not go into much more detail here, and we'll hear about that. So these interventions in the epistemic domain make space for autocratization clearly. But what ways of operating did we see? We've identified 3 ways of operating which negatively impact democracy. First is restricting academic freedom and freedom of expression, including creating confusion about what is what. What is academic freedom and what is freedom of expression? So there is a lot of attacks facing on that. And these attacks can trigger self-censorship as well as other forms of obeying in advance. All this is shrinking the public sphere. Second, there is a large element of delegitimizing existing knowledge, actors, institutions in anti-gender politics, at the same time with legitimizing those that are aiming to replace them. So the process wants to replace critical knowledge with knowledge aligned with a broader and autocratic project. It's at the same time an attack on science as an institution and an attack on the values of intersectional feminist and social justice. The third way of operating is sowing epistemic chaos and creating more ambiguity, hindering democratic defense. So this is through the deliberative production of counter-science, pseudoscience, and changing the meaning of established concepts in social science and democratic debate. These initiatives take the form of books, articles, think tank reports, moral legal discourses that mimic academic knowledge while rejecting its empirical norms. And there is a subtle and equally corrosive process where they semantically inverse the meaning of key terms concerning women and minority rights and concerning democracy. And these epistemic interventions generate confusion about what constitutes valid knowledge and what provides pseudo-scientific legitimation to openly discriminatory views. This ambiguity is what my colleagues Joep van Lith, Maurits Meijers, Caroline van Ham point to as a major mechanism in hindering democratic defense. And together, these strategies show that while they claim that their goal is to restore objectivity in academia, high-quality scientific research, pluralism even sometimes, their activities are focused on institutional replacement and achieving epistemic hegemony. To get to a higher level of exclusion of targeted minoritized people from the democratic public sphere, contributing to autocratization. So I'm going to briefly present also the strategy of the Koch brothers here, because that strategy has been written down in a large extent as a three-tiered strategy for epistemic hegemony. It was about libertarianism, but it doesn't matter. The strategy is applied in similar ways now for different subjects. So this three-tiered strategy, the publication is from Fink in 1996. The first tier is investment in intellectual raw materials. So concepts, theories. Then second, to process these ideas into solution for real-world problems in think tanks and policy institutions. And thirdly, mobilizing citizen activists or implementation groups to take up these ideas, translate them into proposals that citizens can act upon. So this vision and this three-tiered strategy, you can see it very clearly in action when it comes to the politics of knowledge in Europe. And I won't go into how the Heritage Foundation has already perfected this, because it's rolled out very quickly, and we can all see it happen, right? In the article with, or the chapter with David Paternotte, where we analyzed Project 2025, the authors of the handbook actually at first didn't believe the quotes from Project 2025. No? Eliminate the Department of Education, eliminate the concepts of diversity, gender equality, from every curriculum, every this, every that, anywhere, appoint partisan people everywhere, right? But it's exactly what they're doing. And it follows the three-tiered strategy, I think, and it perfects it, and it goes even further than that. So the current enactment by the Trump administration illustrates the nature of the society that autocratization intends to produce. This is not just conservative in the old classic understanding as a minimal role for the polity, which should not restrict the capitalist economy. It is more an autocratic vision of where a particular idea about what society should be is promoted. And this particular idea about what society is to be is patriarchal, it's white supremacist, it's extremely and brutally capitalist exploitative. And so it's a strategy of autocratizing science to strengthen capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, and enable multifaceted corruption by the political elite in the process. So I'm thankful for the cooperation panel, Manuela and Batu and Jode, because I know that Geert Wilders was a keynote speaker at the CPAC conference in Budapest, declaring that he was standing on the shoulders of giants. And I've shown earlier on how he has forever acted against academia in the Netherlands and ever voted against money for them. So there's two takeaways from that. The society at the end of this process is a toxic cocktail of patriarchy, white supremacy, hostile heteronormativity, brutal finance, and tech capitalism. And I think unapologetic responses are needed. And this is hard because of all these lingering legacies in our European societies that we often tend to forget. A second message, it's my last page, is that there is a disastrous positive feedback loop in all this. unfortunately. So the destruction of science facilitates the destruction of democracy. The destruction of democracy facilitates the destruction of science. That's a positive feedback loop that can make the process go really fast. And the mechanisms driving this feedback loop, speeding up the process, are not just about the construction of facts. They're about the construction of truth about the reality we live in, about who counts as people, and hence as a potential demos, and who does not. These truths about the humanity of people are crucial for understanding the impact on democracy. This is a very distinct reversal of a protest starting at the beginning of last century, away from epistemic injustice towards now reinstalling it and reconfirming it. So, as the last part of my talk, what is then needed? What should be done? What can we academics do for the defense of humanity and the demos? I do think that there is many ways in which we need new concepts, new glasses, but maybe also we need new eyes. I'm working on opposition to gender equality since 2012, something, and it has not been the academics that supported me in the beginning. I met a lot of skepsis back then from people that believed there was an eternal automatic process of progress towards gender equality. It was the activist academics, the activists, those affected that have led the way. For them, none of this scholarship was new. Not for Black feminist scholars, not for Romani scholars, not for queer scholars, not for indigenous scholars of Europe. And given how we organize our academic institutions, those people are really at the top of the institutions. If anything, they're among the more precarious, the more excluded. That's not just sad or tragic or wrong, it also affects our collective resilience, our potential to reverse the direction of processes. Those feminist people, those LGBT people, those racialized people are largely absent in academia. They are not taken serious enough by us, were largely abandoned by us. And unless we stand up for them and create space for them, we are weakening our possibilities for a better future. And this points to another more fundamental line of what is needed. I think we need to democratize the institutions of knowledge production. We had some of that in the past. Neoliberalism has made us lose that. None of gender studies would have been possible without the activist feminists in the past. They created knowledge institutions, summer schools, publishing houses, books, bookshops, magazines, radios, programs, television programs, and yes, gender studies. So I guess my message here is that we'd better change ourselves too. And yes, I know this is the activist me speaking. I hope you don't mind. Thank you.